Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 13th, 2019 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. The first item is reserved for citizens' time. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to talk about anything that's not specifically on the agenda? Nope. Okay. Next, we have item 3 is the approval of minutes, May 23rd.
We don't have
yet.
minutes yet.
Okay, so we'll have to skip over that. Item 4, moving right along, we have requests for certificate of compliance to Wall Street, the Gutierrez Company, DEP file number 122-545.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Marissa Valentino with BSC Group.
All right, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Okay. So, do you have anything you would like to say before we?
Sure, I can talk about, the work was completed in 2015.
Sure.
There was a prior order of conditions on the project that has since been closed. The work was consisting of concrete slab at the dumpster and outdoor seating area, and then some landscaping improvements.
Okay. That's
about
fine.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, John, Eileen, comments?
So you remember this project, they cut down the deck area. This was Paparazzi converting into Paparazzi
Right.
Metro. So they reduced the deck. They did some plantings below along the brook. But the work was fine. And then the company went out of business or sold, moved out before they got a certificate of compliance. Since then, they've issued another order of conditions for the for the same site. So we really should have closed it out then. It was sort of an oversight.
So this is the old one to close out?
Right.
Correct, okay. All right, so it's almost administrative at this point.
Correct.
All right, then could I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance for 2 Wall Street for DEP file number 122-545?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 8. You're abstained? 501.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, that was easy. That's just administrative anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so now we are at a request for a certificate of applicability. Notice is given that the commission will hold a public meeting, during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Robert Kuna of the Burlington School Department. The commission will take all information related to the proposed installation of a Project Adventure Challenge course within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands at the high school. The commission will thereafter issue a determination. The application is being heard pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review. Good evening.
Good evening, how you doing? Robert
you?
Peter from the school department. So we have an existing 30-plus-year-old course that's in the woods at Burlington High School. That course is no longer in commission, but it's still actually in the woods. At town meeting, it was approved to fund a new course, which we'd like to put on what we're calling the practice field at Burlington High School behind the student parking lot. Not part of this funding, but we will remove the other project adventure course that's in the woods as safely, as cleanly as we can as well, with the same company doing the installation.
All right. Okay, comments from our staff, Eileen or John?
Okay, so I know some of you saw it. It's a grassed area, flat grassed area. It's certainly a much better location for this type of use than the previous location, which was a wooded swamp. And that involved cutting down some trees, unfortunately, when they constructed it. There'll be no trees cut, maybe some grass cut, that's about it. The work is putting in 7 poles. 15 poles. 15 poles and 22 sort of anchor mounts. The only question is, the sketch you included showed 6 poles. Is that just a schematic or something?
The second page sketch shows the full.
Okay.
So it was more just an example that I gave to show, because I had concerns, to the board. I had concerns about the potential for the 40-foot buffer zone and 25-foot buffer zone.
So those are the closest ones.
Correct.
So they're outside your no-build. There's minimal excavation involved. There is, additionally, there is locally regulated riverfront area. There's basically the headwaters of, not Sandy Brook, Long Meadow Brook is there, but once again, the work is all within grass. There's really not much impact at all.
So you have no concerns? All right, let's see if anybody on the board has a question or an issue with the project. Indra, anything?
How deep it will go, the pole under?
The board. So we have different length poles that are shown in the drawings. So the deepest would be about 8 feet, and then some at about 6 feet.
So how do you dig that?
We wouldn't, the company that comes in would actually use a machine, so they would actually back a truck onto the property, and the truck itself would actually have the auger on the back of it.
So it would be like straight auger?
Straight down, yep. Any dirt that was displaced, we would use to backfill the hole and spread it right there, so we wouldn't be removing any land.
So it's pretty much like a telephone pole,
Yeah,
same
it is.
idea.
Okay, thank you.
Gail, anything? No. And Bill, anything?
How much use you think this is gonna get? Is it gonna be popular?
I think it's very popular. All 4 grades at the high school, it's actually built into the curriculum.
Oh, is it really?
Yep.
How long has the other one been out of commission?
This is going on second year. So a full year where half the course was not available, and then this year, right now, the whole entire course was decommissioned and we were told not to use. So,
Thanks.
All right. John, anything? And Ed, anything?
No,
Anyone in the audience for this? It's the project at the practice field for the high school. I have nothing further. So we have a negative conditional determination with a few conditions on it to adhere to, and we'll discuss it, vote, and then I think you'll be all set. So Eileen or John, would you like to review, please?
Sure, so on the front page of the findings, all of which I really discussed, the project description and the jurisdictional areas. The decision is a conditional negative determination with the following conditions, proposed conditions. No other work is approved under this permit other than what's described in the application. Condition 2 is a requirement to put in erosion controls prior to doing the installation of the poles. Condition 3 is prohibiting any tree removal. Condition 4 is requiring the removal of any trash or debris that's in the wetlands. Condition 5 is a condition to remove the debris that's in the old course. So the previous condition is just in the immediate vicinity of the work. The Project Adventure course, the old one is a few hundred feet away. And then standard conditions about removal of excavated material, no stockpiling, and the commission's right to access the site.
Any questions at all?
Is that a condition of overnight, no overnight parking of trucks? Is that gonna be a problem during the construction? No?
Yes, Gail?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
answer Bill's question.
He said no.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
Wasn't there something that,
Yeah.
maybe I missed it, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of out of it. About removal of the old course and
Number 5?
number 5. Okay, sorry, yep.
All right, anybody else?
I just wanted
Comments
to
on
bring
it?
that in.
All right, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and the State Wetlands Protection Act for the project as described at 123 Cambridge Street, the high school practice field?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 6, 0, 0. You're all set.
thank you.
All right, good luck. All right,
I actually have,
okay. All right, so next is, we have a continuation of a request for determination, 33 Westwood Street. Mr. Nicholas Barrett, install drainage in the lawn. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
What's that?
Said thank you for having me.
No problem. Okay, so we continued this because we have some issues to consider and what, if anything, to do. Given that this is kind of an unusual situation. One, your property is surrounded by wetlands. That's unfortunate, given the circumstances, and two, you've done a lot of work on the site already. So you have to decide what the best approach is. So would you like to say anything by way of update, or should we just engage in discussion?
I don't have any updates. I mean, the report that you guys have a copy of, I think
Right.
is pretty comprehensive, but just confirms exactly what you just said. That it's, actually, they said, probably realistically, the whole house was built in the wetlands, when it was originally constructed.
Right, right, that could very well be,
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, from my perspective, I just didn't know anything about it.
Right, okay. All right, so, John or Eileen, would you like to give a brief summary of the materials that we got and the main conclusion, perhaps?
Okay, so the materials were put together after a site visit by Norse where they actually flagged the wetlands. And the wetlands are pretty much right along the fence on both the rear and each side. So,
Right.
so Norse's conclusion is that the current wetland just basically surrounds the house, the yard on three sides. And as I think Nick just said, they think that much, if not all, of the lot originally was wetlands. But their contention is that you did not expand the yard backwards or the lawn towards the rear. And they submitted some documentation, aerial photos, and a photo from the original listing, real estate listing, supporting their contention that the yard hasn't been pushed further back. Admittedly, though, I mean, there were some trees cut back there, I believe, when the pool was put in, or there was originally some grading prior to this. So this process started when I discovered that he was putting in drainage in the existing lawn, and went out there and told him he needed to file. A couple of years before that, there was another project where he had put in some fill, and that's why there's a little wall between the fence and the pool. But in both this case and the previous case, he's saying that it was all lawn before. It was just adding to what was already lawn. And that's what Norse is saying as well. So basically, you have to decide whether or not you find the evidence for that compelling and believable. And if you do, then you have to determine how to proceed. There's clearly wetland alteration on the sides of the property, fences in the wetland, stone in the wetlands, driveway expansion right up to the edge of the wetlands virtually. The stone driveway, not the paved driveway. And at the rear, there's clear evidence of fairly recent tree cutting beyond the fence that was in the wetland. So it's a difficult situation, and it's really hard to just explain here. So as I said in my memo to you, I would highly recommend that the commission, the majority of the commission, if not all the commission, walk the site together with the applicant at a posted event where I would post the meeting so that you could actually deliberate on site, as opposed to your typical site visits where you're just supposed to gather information and there shouldn't be a lot of back and forth. If you post the meeting, you can do that, because it's hard to talk about these things without being there, and I know some of you haven't seen it, so that would be my recommendation.
All right, so if we were to list the issues in order, we have, starting from the front, on the left-hand side, there's some stone and stuff, there was filling of wetlands on the side.
Correct.
As we begin to go clockwise around, the fence line, maybe towards the back, is right on the wetland line,
On the sides as well.
on the side as well. And then as we keep going around, the situation is the same on the other side.
Correct.
And do we have any evidence to the contrary that says that essentially opposes what the wetland? Do you have any reason to believe that, or any evidence to believe that their conclusion that the lawn was not, wetlands was not filled as part of the?
Right, so we reviewed aerial photos, old aerial photos from Google Earth, and unfortunately, there were more trees there. So the trees really block the lawn, your view of the lawn, so we can't conclude that the lawn was or was not extended. All we can conclude is that there's fewer trees there, but the trees could have been within lawn area for all we know, you know?
I also went on Google Earth, and unfortunately, most of the historical photos are during the summer, when the trees are overhanging, you can't see much. It turns out there is one time frame, right around the time when you moved in, there is May of 2016. And it looks like, chances are, whatever's there, the lawn, you know, to me, it looks like that the lawn, the area was cleared out back to where they're saying. It looks that way, so I'll circulate this if these people want to.
I think the other question is whether there was, I guess you can't tell whether Phil was, you know,
That's right around the time he moved in.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's very little tree cover, so you can see it, and it looks clear back to
Where it is now.
where it is now. So the picture kind of supports what the consultant is saying. Okay. I mean, it's hard to tell.
yeah, it could be wet, it could be wetland too.
Could be wet,
Yeah,
could be
I mean-
wet, but
Because wetlands look like that on Google.
yeah, so it's hard to say, but,
This could be wetland too. When you look at Google Maps, wetlands look like brown spaces.
Looks like, and plus the trees are falling here.
yeah. So let's circulate it to the other. There's very little,
I mean, so that, there's no doubt that part of the lawn is wetland. I mean, if you looked at the soils, obviously not the area where he just pulled the soils out and put the drain, but on the side even, I'm sure that if Norris were to look at soils inside the fence, they'd find hydric soils. But it was lawn when he bought it. I mean, I think the commission wants to fix it so that it's the way it was when he bought it, not try to roll it back to some time long before he bought it.
right, right. We're not trying to recreate history.
Yeah, that's a better.
And definitely on, you know, on the sides, from my perspective, John, you and I spoke about that yesterday, and I can pull the crushed stone. There was drainage swales there that I put the stone in.
Right.
It's pretty simple procedure for me to pull all that stone out of there.
Right.
I think that would
Right.
help, basically some of the stuff that you and I talked about.
Directionally, that would be a step in the right direction, obviously, and sounds like a logical step. So let's see if anybody has any comments. Anybody on the left want to say anything further regarding the situation?
So we're saying,
So I think I agree with John. I think we need to go out and, you know, all see it, and especially because I think the fence line is an issue as well,
Right,
as well as potentially trees that were taken down.
right, right.
And this driveway, so this driveway, this gravel driveway, that's right up to the wetland? Is it in wetland?
Well, the stone goes into the wetlands. I mean, the stone goes from the driveway, and then it becomes part of the trench or whatever, but.
Bill, you have any comment?
so the shed was installed on what was already cleared grass land also? That was not
Right,
put on a new fill or anything for that?
no.
All right, John?
Well, I also agree that we should do another visit. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
All right, Ed?
The visit is fine, and I still have my concerns over the fence
What fence
placement.
would be there?
I see
Around
that.
that shed, it shows where these latest storms
The fence, you know, like-
kind of laid water in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, given, John, I have a question for you. Given the historical context of what we typically do, if that was lawn area, as the evidence seems to support, and at least that's what their consultant is saying, and he was asked to fill in some of that lawn area to raise it because it's pretty wet, what would be your typical, how do you think it would end up? Let's say he wanted to raise it a foot. If it was already existing lawn.
Yeah, but it had hydric soils,
What?
but the soils were hydric.
Unspecified. I mean, right now, we don't know because it's already.
Right, no, but there haven't been that many cases, but I think the commission has in the past allowed people to elevate the lawn where it's been historical lawn, even if it's potentially wetland soils underneath.
Right. Okay. That's my impression, but I'd rather hear it from you, the case. So, in other words, I mean, if it's historical lawn and it's that way as existing, we typically would not ask to recreate riverfront if it was already existing that way, even though sometimes we negotiate that.
Right, if it was a tear down in a new house, you might try to get some of that
If there was
restored.
something being changed.
Right, but that's not the
Might try
case.
to get some,
Right.
there's cases where we've gotten 5 or 10 feet.
Right.
Right, okay. All right, so, anyone in the audience for this at all? This is at 33 Westwood, no comment from anyone. So where we are, sir, is, I think the easiest way to come to closure is we all schedule a site visit and we all just talk about it and just see what we can agree to. Okay, because there are some issues out there and we need to do some things to try to make it so it complies with the regulations. Okay, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, sounds fine to me.
Okay. All right, so the office will be in touch, and they'll try to coordinate some time that's mutually convenient to you and to most of the people that can make it.
Sounds good. All right,
Okay.
thank you, guys.
Is there anything else from anyone? All right, thanks for coming in, appreciate
All
it.
right, thank you.
All right, take care. Okay, the next is item 6. We have 5 Susan Ave on the agenda. Someone here for that? Thought so. Okay, so why don't you again, even though we know who you are, why don't you again introduce yourself?
Happy to. Good evening. Joe Blake, owner of Blake Development LLC, pulled the permit initial request for the notice of intent filing on this property. And we are here tonight, I believe, just to review some of the open questions from the prior session, which I think dated back to May 30th, around there, I think. was
It
our-
definitely has been a while. Okay. All right, so would you, would you like to make comments, or would you like our staff to kind of,
I'd be happy to provide you with an overview of the change log and what's transpired since the last time we met,
Right.
and certainly defer to staff from there. So, some of the questions that were asked of us last time in revising the site plan that you have in front of you there is to the left of the driveway, you'll see a drainage trench there. The post and rail fence initially just wasn't alongside bordering the new vegetation that we'd be planting there. So we did update the plot plan to show the post and rail fence having 90-degree angle and running parallel to the driveway and the stone trench over there. There was another question around the dwelling square footage of 3,759 square feet for the proposed house, and whether or not that did or did not include the driveway and the deck in that impervious number. It does include the driveway, it does not include the deck. So 3,759 square feet of impervious on the proposed home plan here is comprised of the proposed dwelling, so the house, and the driveway as well. Another question was how much impervious is just the proposed house, and that value is 2,530 square feet. There was another question regarding another measurement I'd given you last time, 5,960 square feet, and that particular measurement is the final used land on the approved plan itself as it sits today. The driveway trench overflow piping, so we did talk about, just due to the capacity of that stone trench and the drainage that it would be asked to remediate from the property and the driveway there, it was asked that we do show piping into the Storm Tech underground catchment system. So we did update the plan just to show that PVC scheduled piping flowing over to that Storm Tech drainage system. And then it just wanted to make note of the fact that the alternatives analysis does incorporate the setbacks of other homes on that road, having 25 to 26 feet of frontage, effectively mirroring what the proposed dwelling has as well. 2 test pits were dug as well at the request of the commission. So I do have those, both locations updated in the plan there as well. One of the test pits were dug precisely where the front right footing will reside, under the ground. We did elect to do another test pit roughly 20 feet, or I forget what I marked, it was either 20, 25 feet to the right of that, near where that Storm Tech drainage system will be as well.
Okay. All right, so, John and Eileen, how, are there unresolved concerns, first question, and the second question is, this is riverfront, and do you believe, or do you understand the material sufficiently that it complies with the riverfront regs?
Okay, so it's a riverfront under the bylaw.
Right.
It's not riverfront under the Wetlands Protection Act. So this is Sawmill Brook, so it's almost certainly intermittent at this point. And before I get into the performance standards under the regs, I will say, so this plan, I think, addresses all your issues and requests specific to
From the last time.
from the design point of view. But there's been a lot of numbers thrown around, and I think they're confusing. And I think you need, a different format of proposed versus existing versus proposed, so that you can actually evaluate the compliance with the performance standards and determine whether or not it meets the standards or requires any waivers. So I wrote those down in a memo to you.
Yeah.
I think we need, comparison of that, because all these other numbers are just sort of, I just find them confusing and not easy to understand.
Right.
So do you want me to go through them?
Yeah, why don't you
Okay,
go
sure.
through your notes here, it's
Okay.
right here, you have some bullet points.
Okay, so we just need existing and proposed degraded riverfront area. And so under the regulations, a degraded area is an area that has impervious area or no topsoil. So in this case, it'll just be the impervious area. Impervious meaning the house, the deck, the driveway. So what's the existing, what's the proposed, the total, just the total of those altogether. An existing and proposed area of lawn, buildings, basically the proposed and existing yard area, excluding the area that's going to be replanted, the area inside the fence.
Let
So,
me ask you, John, is this so we can look at the amount of, the limitation on the amount of disturbance under the riverfront? Is that
right.
what you're getting at?
Right.
Okay.
So you're only allowed, so the regulations say you can permit up to 5,000 square feet, or 10%, but on this lot, 5,000 is greater. So you want to make sure you're not allowing more than 5%, 5,000 square
5,000
feet.
square feet of disturbance within a riverfront area.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may be written somewhere, but I couldn't really find the total area proposed to be upgraded from lawn to the naturally vegetated area. Just what is that area? Also, the existing and proposed disturbance in the 20-foot no disturb. By that, I mean the area. So the proposed, the square footage of disturbance within the 20-foot, proposed and existing, and the proposed and existing disturbance within the 40-foot no build. So how much building is within the 40-foot no build now? How much will be when it's done? Just
With this
just in a
information-
table, and then it's just easy. It complies, or it doesn't, it doesn't.
Okay, and so that's essentially the ability to assess compliance with riverfront regs is the last remaining item.
Right. Because all the information may be here, but it's just really hard to sort of put it together because of the way it's presented, so.
All right, so, Mr. Blake, do you have any questions on what he suggests, what Mr. Keeley suggested?
No, thank you, Commissioner. I don't have any questions. I would just plan on working with you both directly on the tabulation of the data so we can ensure compliance.
Yeah, it'll be helpful if you use John's actual, the wording he used,
Thank you.
because, you know, you mentioned,
I lost some of it in my notes.
you mentioned final use land, and that's not entirely clear to us what that means, you know?
Can you provide him a copy of what
Yeah.
paragraph that you wrote
Absolutely,
us?
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's first ask the commission, is there anything further, any other issues, given what you've heard so far? Ms. Indra?
No, I think John, whatever said is that would be much more clearer. How much is the disturbance there? How much is existing, how much is disturbing? Whether it is under 5,000 or over 5,000, we can see it.
Gail, anything further? Any other issues? How about Bill, anything else?
I don't see a 40-foot no disturb on the drawing, so it's a little hard to judge even by eyeball what the differences are. The 40-foot no build, I'm sorry.
Is that line's not on here?
But I can see it's only 20 foot.
Yeah.
It doesn't show, does it?
And,
20 foot,
I mean, it's
that's all.
obviously
20
going
foot
to be
shows,
through the
yeah.
building, but so is the existing
in the
building.
previous
so that's
iteration.
an issue, but we'd be better able to compare them.
All right,
If we have
so
that
I
visual.
guess what Bill is asking for is the 40-foot line, just drawing on the thing, which should be pretty easy, given you've already drawn a 20.
Yeah. And one other comment is, I'm trying to remember what I've seen in the past. When we have this amount of like restored area, do our conditions normally say that that area is maintained in perpetuity? Is that the way it's worded? That should be perpetuity.
Right,
Okay.
that would be
Could
an
be.
ongoing condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the only questions I had.
And, okay, so let's go, John, anything further on it? Ed, anything further?
Nothing in addition.
Anyone in the audience for 5 Susan Ave? Now, have you requested a waiver at all as part of this project from either the 20-foot intrusion into the 20 or the 40-foot zone?
I don't believe one has been formally requested, no.
Do you feel one is needed, or you're not sure yet?
I would certainly defer to the commission for that.
Okay. John, do you have any comment on that at this point, or are you going to wait and see the information?
I'd wait and see the information.
I think we did talk about it at a previous meeting, how Joe explained that the existing house is,
No closer.
yeah, but so did the old.
Yeah, I
Existing
think I
house
do
is
remember you
close.
saying that. That may imply, I'm not sure it does, may imply that you don't need a waiver from our regulations, our setback regulations. But if you do, we need to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay? So it sounds like we have one issue. I'll leave it to the staff's discretion if you think
It's a 20-foot,
Yeah.
we are likely in compliance based on information submitted in time. I'll leave it to your discretion whether you prepare the draft documents for closing out.
Okay.
the next meeting. So if you get, I would urge you to get it in as soon as possible, though,
Yes.
okay? Because that enhances the likelihood, if everything's okay, that we may be able to close at the next meeting.
Great.
Anything from anyone else? Anyone have comments? Guess we're all set, sir.
I'm saying thank you all very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you should
Okay.
vote to continue the hearing.
All right, could I have a motion to continue the hearing at 5 Susan Ave?
So,
Second?
second,
All in favor? That's
To the
unanimous.
date,
Oh, to continue to
the 27th.
27th, June 27th. Second night of the DNC debate. Okay,
600.
Why we have DVRs.
right.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate
All
it.
right,
Have a nice
have a good
evening.
evening. Okay, so,
You ended up doing that.
all right, so next on the agenda is, we have a continued public hearing. It is 10 Wing Terrace by Stephen Stratford, demolish a single-family dwelling and construct a new dwelling. It's for DEP file number
That's what I said.
122-626. All right, good evening.
For the record, my name is Bernard Hamel. I'm representing Mr. Stratford this evening as his engineer.
All right, is he here tonight?
He is.
Okay.
Way in the back of the audience.
All right.
So if there's any particular questions, you can direct them to Stratford. During our last hearing a month ago, we had a series of concerns, which we have attempted to address.
Right.
We gave you a running list of how we addressed those. We did redesignate the stream.
Right, so item 1, this is your list on the second page of your note.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Why don't you definitely go through it?
I'd just like to go through them for the board, and then if you have any questions, either stop me in the middle or towards the end, whatever is convenient.
Sounds great. Please continue.
We were also asked to move the house as far away as feasible from, or the proposed dwelling, as far away as feasible from the resource area. We did move it forward a little bit. We didn't have a lot of playroom on that. We did move it to the left another 7 feet. We also relocated the driveway a little further away. Again, trying to protect the resource. We did expand the project and alternative descriptions as much as possible. We also provided a work sequence, which I thought was more conducive to describing how we were going to proceed with the project, since I didn't really think the commission was interested in how we were going to pound nails, but was interested in how the site work was going to take place, and the sequence of that site work. We also showed all the trees. We had that in our survey guide. It was just a matter of turning on a particular layer. We had some sizes on the trees. We did, upon your request, Mr. Chairman, move some of the drainage around a little bit to protect those 2 trees on the embankment area. We wanted to protect those, but we also wanted to look towards protecting the root structure. You know, things you can't see get you more trouble than things you can see.
Right.
So we did move those drainage systems a bit further away from the tree.
Yes.
We showed a crown on the driveway. We did also, were requested, and it's, I know, standard Burlington practice to provide drains along the side of the driveway. We've gotten into trouble in other towns doing that. In particular, I had a personal experience where a lawnmower picked up the rocks on the side of the driveway and whipped it through a side window or car. Instead, what we're presenting here, and it's a little more efficient, and I'm going to say about 3 times more expensive, is a trench drain along the front of the driveway. It's downhill. It does collect the water. It also provides a sump, a cleanable sump, and it does drain back into the drainage system.
And they don't get accidentally filled in by the homeowner, usually that way.
Purposely filled in by the homeowner is more likely, sir.
Right, okay.
So we thought that was a slightly more elegant solution. Hopefully it's acceptable. Again, the drainage system was relocated slightly to preserve the trees along this stream embankment. The wetland limits, there was some questions about the wetlands on the backside of the property and also in the upper left-hand corner before the stream area. I'll point to this area up in here. We looked at that. We also went and looked online for Oliver, which usually depicts wetlands and so forth. We went back out there. It does have some characteristics of a wetland, does not have the hydric soils, does have some of the plant species that would characterize a wetland, but I don't believe it is a wetland. So we did look, so forth. We also proposed a stockade fence to replace the post and rail. We carried it along the entire embankment of the stream. It's going to be a large 6-foot stockade fence. Hopefully that'll prevent any leaves from going over or any debris from going over to that embankment, and also protect the embankment from whatever activities might take place on the property. We also provided a planting schedule along the fence, some chokeberries. They were recommended by a wetlands botanist at 6-foot intervals, alternating black and red chokeberries. They provide good habitat as well as some nutrient value for birds and other creatures in the area. That's on the plan. We provided a 20-foot no-build zone as shown on the kind of orangey red line there from the embankment as requested by the commission. We did provide some additional details regarding the removal of the sheds and patios, along with a secondary siltation barrier during the removal process, and a planting schedule for the disturbed areas with some specific plants included in there. We would prefer to lawn it over, but I believe the commission asked for some plantings, and we're more than happy to provide those. We also provided some offset dimensions for the existing house and the proposed dwelling. As you can see, we're quite a bit further away, maybe not as far as the commission would like, but we're getting to the limits of the property and so forth. We also added, which was not asked by the commission, a general stockpile area outside the 100-foot buffer zone in the lower left-hand corner of the property as shown on Wooden Terrace. We think it's important that we place as much questionable material outside that 100-foot buffer zone as possible.
All right. Okay, thank you. Very good summary. John or Eileen, do you feel that the issues where we left off have all been addressed?
I think so. I think they did a very nice job of addressing all of your issues. I mean, there's going to be some disturbance in the 20-foot that's kind of, it's impossible to avoid, but they've added a secondary line of erosion controls in order to prevent anything from going into the stream. They're pulling up the sheds and the concrete slab, and then they're replanting that 20-foot area. So I think that's a nice touch.
And the shed in back is being removed?
Yeah.
The fence.
Exactly, and putting in the fence to protect the wetland. I think they made a lot of improvements.
Right, okay. Now, for the commission, is there any other remaining issues? How about on this side, anything? How about from the audience? This is 10 Wing Terrace. No comments? Okay, so unless there's something further to address, we have a draft decision to review. Do you have a copy yet?
Not seen a copy.
Okay, well, here's our draft decision, which is, most of it is typical of what everyone gets, and we're going to review it. Okay? All right, Eileen,
Okay.
please.
We'll start with the bylaw, because it gives the findings. So as, just to catch everybody up, a notice of intent was filed for demolition of an existing family dwelling patio sheds, and then they're proposing to rebuild a new house within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands and the bank of an unnamed tributary to the Shawsheen River. The tributary is a stream with a regulated 200-foot riverfront area under the Burlington Wetland Bylaw. So going on to the wetland, on the next page, the wetland values. The proposed work was within the riverfront area to a locally regulated unnamed tributary to Shawsheen River. The closest point of the proposed new dwelling was approximately 35 feet from the stream and BVW. The Commission finds that this is generally accurate, however, the Commission is not officially approving the delineation. Under stormwater management, this project is exempt from the Massachusetts stormwater management regulations. The bylaw include a performance standard for the buffer zone, which states that runoff from the new impervious surface shall be infiltrated on site to the maximum extent possible, and that's what they're doing. Erosion controls will be implemented during construction, minimizing impact to the resource areas and municipal stormwater system. The Commission finds that the proposal meets the performance standards for work in the riverfront area. The new dwelling will be no closer to the bank than the existing dwelling. A stockade fence will replace the existing post and rail fence, and red and black chokeberry will be planted between the fence, wall, and stream bank to restore a naturally vegetated buffer to the stream. The area where the sheds were located will also be planted with witch hazel and blueberry shrubs and wildflower mix. This permit also serves as a permit under the Burlington's Erosion and Sedimentation Control Bylaw. Then everything else is pretty much standard up to the decision, which just, I read this before, the conditions. It's going to be conditions 1 through 51 of the order of conditions will be adopted, and we're proposing a cash performance to be submitted in the amount of 3,500. And the rest are standard about potential violations. If you want to look at the order of conditions, the first page is all of the standard ones about permitting work within the 100-foot buffer zone and the riverfront area under the bylaw. Turning on to the second page, under pre-construction conditions, they're mostly pretty standard about notifying us before work begins. Staff will come on site to inspect sediment barriers and to make sure everything else that's standard is present. We might have to adjust number 32 a little bit, just because, as John pointed out, we will need to just account for erosion controls around the stockpile. So I might want to add just a line on there about the stockpile. Prior to commencing the second phase of work, the applicant and our contractor shall meet with the conservation staff to review the new line erosion controls and stability of the no disturb zone. Material should not be stockpiled within 20 feet of the wetlands, and Mr. Hamill said it's actually going to be outside the buffer zone entirely. Keep street clean. No additional grading beyond that which is shown on the approved plan shall be permitted without filing a request to determine if it requires a new notice. Any debris that falls into the wetlands or stream shall be immediately removed by hand. No discharge or spilling of fluid. Equipment refueling operations shall be in an upland area. No more than 50 gallons of fuel. These are all pretty standard. No pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides shall be used within 100 feet of the wetlands, and this is going to be a condition noted in perpetuity. Rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated on site as shown on the approved plan and as discussed. The trench drain shall be installed downslope of the driveway as you described. Directing runoff to the nearby infiltration chamber, and this trench drain should not be removed while the driveway is present, and this will also be noted as a perpetual condition. Then in the riverfront, a stockade fence shall replace the existing post and rail fence, and we've described the chokeberries again and the witch hazel and blueberries. And 3 24-inch red maples to be removed within the buffer shall be replaced in kind on the lot. And then the last is just the standard about how to go about requesting a certificate of compliance.
All right. Anything jump out at you at all?
Just one question.
Sure.
Bond is fine, the amount. I assume it would be released upon satisfactory submission of an as-built and issuance of a certificate of compliance by the commission?
Yeah, I mean, normally, and the area is stabilized for a growing season.
One growing season.
Is that correct? Did I state that correctly?
We don't have that as a condition. Is that typical? If it's stable and the sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much planting involved. There's like 2 or 3 trees. So.
And there's a lot of bushes.
There are bushes.
There are a lot of shrubs. 6 trees, I think.
Yeah. It's up to you. Do you want a condition in there?
I think that's, we
So-
do it for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, but what you frequently do is still issue a certificate of compliance and hold part of the bond, or release part of the bond and not issue the certificate of compliance, one of the two, if you want to, if they're looking for something sooner than 2 goes.
It's just, I was just wondering about the procedure, the
Yeah.
particulars.
Yeah. Yeah, what's typical is we'll issue the certificate. If we think it needs more time to make sure everything is established, then we might release in this case, we might release a part of the bond, for example. Okay. Okay, anything from the commission on the left?
No, I thought you did a good job in working with it, and I certainly appreciate you moving the house as far away as you could.
Anything on the right? Okay, so, one question. Do we need to vote a waiver, given that there is some work in the no disturb zone?
It's up to you. I mean, the work is to improve the area.
But, so it justifies the
So the
waiver?
20-foot, the work in the 20-foot is an improvement, and the work in the 40-foot is that's further away, so the dwelling's like 10 feet further away.
Right, so it's the-
still in the 40 feet, but it's considerably further away, so I don't think that requires a waiver,
Okay, so you don't think we need a waiver of the 20-foot?
not for restoration.
Okay, all right. Anyone feel differently?
No, that makes sense to me. Here, the work is to improve it.
Okay,
But I think the stabilization is critical where the work is so close to the bank. And we definitely want to verify the stabilization of the bank before we wrap it up.
right. Okay, if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-626?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? 600. Could I have a motion to adopt the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-626?
So move.
Second? Second. All in favor? Same vote. Could I have a motion to issue the order of conditions under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act for DEP file number 122-626?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote. And could I have a motion to require the posting of a $3,500 cash performance guarantee under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-626?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Moved. He moved, I second.
Okay. Yeah, I saw him move first.
We have to go instant
Any
replay.
discussion? Is it okay? No discussion? All in favor? Same vote. Good luck with your project, gentlemen. All right, thank you. All right, so, next on the agenda is a continued public hearing for 8 Birch Street for grading, patio construction, landscaping, and do we have a DEP file number?
No.
No, not yet. What's that?
I'll explain in a second about the DEP.
All right. Okay, but first introduce yourselves for the record so the note taker can.
Howard Higgins from Weston and Safe.
Nick Andrew-Misher, I'm the homeowner.
Right, good to see you again. Okay.
So I did reach out to DEP again today because I noticed that there was not still a DEP file number. And I haven't heard back yet, but it's all revolving around $55 in fees. So we cut a check for half that, send half of it to the Concom, half of it to the state on the 30th. And I just wanted to reach out today to verify that they did receive it and if they could just issue a DEP file number, because we're all set. That was the only thing holding up the DEP file number was $55.
All right, $55, got it, okay. All right, so would you like to summarize the changes since we last talked and what you have done since?
Absolutely.
And any issues addressed?
Sure. So at the end of the last meeting, there were a couple of plan changes that were requested, most notably putting on existing and proposed contours. And we did that and submitted the plans electronically and copies as well. So the plans have been updated. There was also a request to provide a riverfront area mitigation plan. So we ended up meeting out at the site last week, and we looked at the site, we saw what we could do to help mitigate some of the riverfront area. And we saw that there was an invasive species, Japanese knotweed, that is at the top of the bank. And we also noted some tires and other debris in the riverfront area. And so I put together a brief memo and forwarded it to the commission, proposing that we treat the invasive species Japanese knotweed using the cut and dab method, and that we would remove the debris that's in the riverfront area.
Okay, to improve the riverfront.
Yes. And also, we recommended planting 10 local species, native New England species shrubs.
Okay. All right. And to Eileen and John, do you have comments on issues remaining given the new site plan?
I think the new site plan is on the whole pretty good. I think they have also, made a lot of efforts to take on board our suggestions and your suggestions. I mean, the only things that really remain for me that I'm concerned about are the shed and the steps into
Okay.
the wetland.
All right. Okay. And what is the concern?
Well, where the location, they kindly flagged where the corners of the shed a few days ago for us. So the way that it's now located means that not only is the shed within about 2 feet of the top of the wall, it's also just going to be,
It's on a pretty steep slope.
it's on a weird slope. It just seems like moving a little bit further back to where it's flatter would make more sense and would push it further away from the wetland. And my issue with the steps is that it's just kind of inviting people to go into the wetland.
Okay, let's see how the commission feels, okay? Indra, how do you, we got two issues that were tabled. One is the steps and one is moving the shed back. And in the context of the comments, the wall is what, 3 feet high at that point, would you say, Eileen? About 3 feet, so there's a 3-foot wall, and then there's a steep slope leading from it, and then it flattens out a bit. That's sort of the context.
As long as it is stable, I don't know whether, it can fall or not.
We're talking about the shed.
Right, I'm talking about the shed. So that is a little bit concerning. If it is stable and it will not fall, then it's okay, but,
So you don't care if it's on the slope above the wall?
if it is on the slope, but if it is stable, if it is designed properly, if it is stable,
Well, how far is it from the wetland? It's right,
The closest corner would be 2 or 3 feet from the top, from the wall.
which is
From
at
the
the edge of the
existing.
wetland.
And then a
Yeah.
3-foot drop, right?
yeah.
Well, there's a little slope, so, I mean,
That's
it's
why
only,
if
right.
it
It's a
falls,
matter
then
of
it would
feet.
be a problem. If it, So, I don't know how much stable that shed is.
Well, we actually did propose to, because I heard from John that there may have been issues, so we did slightly update the plan to move it a little bit closer to the house and a little bit to the west, to get it out, to get that corner out from that steep.
And how far away from the wetlands did you end up moving it?
do you mean east?
Here's north this way, so moved it a little further west. I'm sorry, no wetlands.
North is this way, so it'd be, I don't understand.
This was by removing the tree, right? That's what you mean?
Back here.
So you're talking about bringing it down where the tree, are you talking about removing the tree? Right, right.
So we'd be 12 feet from the wetlands.
12 12 feet, okay.
The 20-foot was the other line.
All right.
And I should state too that in this new location, we would propose to remove a tree that's there, but we would propose to plant 2 of the same species.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right, so he's proposing to move it, now it's 12 feet instead of 3 maybe from the corner, is what I understand, you say? And, which is a fairly substantial amount.
Sure.
And given the nature of the site, and if anyone wants to comment on the steps, Gail?
So I think it's good that it's moved, because, you know, we actually, when people doing work on sites, have people move sheds out of, when they're, you know, within the 20-foot or close to the wetland and so forth, so I think that's good that it's moved. I am not in favor of the steps. I mean, we have people, we routinely put up barriers, so people will not go into the wetlands, so they will not be deteriorated and so forth, and I'm just not a fan of this at all, and I would be opposed to that.
All right, Bill?
I'm glad to see the shed moved. I prefer to see it moved completely out of the 20-foot no disturb, but that's certainly a move in the right direction. Looks like there's some fill going within the 20-foot no disturb, is that right, on the left-hand side of the drawing?
That is correct.
Looks like it's about 2 feet of fill over there.
Yes, roughly, but it'll still, after that, it'll still be the same cover type.
So you're talking
There's
about
currently manicured lawn there now, the fill.
Okay, so you're just raising the existing lawn, which we discussed earlier, or something we do see. Okay, and as far as the steps, I don't have a problem with the steps. I know we always say put up a fence to keep people out of the wetlands, but it's usually a gate small enough to not allow a wheelbarrow in would be acceptable.
But you could take a wheelbarrow and dump it down the stairs, you know?
You don't have to
Well, you could, but you could dump it over the wall if you
You
want
don't have
to.
to go down the stairs, you could just dump it over the
Yeah,
wall.
I just
exactly.
don't think we should be inviting people to go into the wetland. That's the purpose of putting up a fence.
To me, the wetland would be inviting, you know, if it were my property, but it must be with the understanding that's to be respected and not used and not planted and not, you know, become a dumping ground or anything like that, exactly.
Or extra yard space.
Let me go to,
And that was gonna be my point too. I think the reason that they want the steps to access the wetlands is for the kids, just to,
Can't they like
you know,
walk around here?
explore nature, as it were.
Yeah, it's gonna be
And
fancy.
I don't know if that,
Coming in, they have problems with people.
in the Wetlands Protection Act, I never really thought about it before, but does it not allow people to actually walk in wetlands if they're hiking around?
that's not an issue, no.
And so I think that's the
But we put
the
boardwalks up
use.
on trails that go through wetlands. You don't actually want to be walking through a wetland because you're damaging the plants. The ground, when you step on it, leaves footprints and things like that. I mean, it's not like walking on, you know, ground out here. There's a difference.
Yeah, I see that, okay.
If you could put up a gate and your fence and, you know, walk around. But I don't think, you know, whenever we have trails, we have boardwalks that go through wetlands. We don't walk through wetlands.
All right. John,
I guess I don't have,
no opinion on either one at the moment?
no, I'm still deciding, well, I'm glad that the shed is going back, but don't know what to think about the steps yet.
All right, well, maybe Ed will convince you. Ed, do you have an opinion?
Well, there's one thing that hasn't been said that you fellas did say while we were there. Are you gonna still put a layer of boulders one more time across?
Yes. So in the plans that you folks have, this top row is where the new boulder layer.
Right. So that's roughly about wide, that series of boulders that you're gonna put in there, going across? Both sides boulders, in other words.
Oh, yes, yeah, it'd be the same size as the boulders that
And now the top of the wall becomes more 10 feet than 12 feet shit.
Yes, that's correct.
And was there a plan, I don't get to the stairs yet, but was there a plan ever to really consider a post and rail going across the top of the wall? Just so you don't have people acknowledging there might be stairs there, hitting anywhere over there, falling like you did?
No, there is no thought of putting a poster rail on top.
That would be my only thought, because children, you know, I just can't picture even myself. I horsed around a lot when I was a kid, and I'd be the first one to jump off that wall. And that's gonna happen. You're gonna have neighbors' kids who won't be thinking about it, but they'll probably do it to test to see how far out they can jump into the wetland area. I have a big concern with the staircase, actually, inviting them to be in a playground. Unless you can discipline somehow a path going through there, like was mentioned, that would say, you can't, on either side. I guess I have just the nay on the stairs. That just kind of bothers me there, but I was hoping to hear somebody say might be a post and rail going across the top of that wall, all the way across, just for the safety purposes of how that wall's designed.
All right, so, John?
So it just occurs to me that, you know, I'm sure the kids would walk down the wall anyway, whether there's stairs or not. And, you know, kids are kids, and so I'm not really sure.
It's just a safer.
Last meeting, he said he's fallen on the wall, that kind of thing. But I just, I mean, why do we require boardwalks through wetlands on trails? We do that to protect them. Because walking in wetlands damages the plants, damages the surface, and you don't actually get stuff growing there where people walk.
But
And
there's
if,
a lot,
you know, just,
I was just gonna say, there's a lot more traffic that would
yeah,
be
but if like,
too.
you know, if people are running around back there playing and stuff like that, I mean, that could be repetitive, like, you know, every day is a nice day, you know, and that's, you know, so you might not have the same amount of people, but you have repetitive, you know, kind of
I
traffic.
think my
right there.
wife would be pretty upset if they ran around in the mud and came into the house.
All right. Well, I'd like to weigh in as well. On the two issues, I'm pleased. I think it's fine that you move the shed back. I think pragmatically it'd be cheaper to construct without maybe being on such a steep slope.
Thank you.
And the second is, if it was me, I would want access to my property in the wetlands. Obviously, if it was really wet, I wouldn't go down there. If it was, you know, when it becomes dry in the summer, or somewhat dry, I would want to have access. And I would want to go down there and see what was down there and so forth, and explore maybe even a little beyond, and so forth. So I don't know who, I forget who said that. I don't have an issue with a narrow set of steps to go down there, and I don't think we're in the, personally, I don't think we're in the business of restricting the use of people's property. And if it was me, I just want to be able to safely go down there with a very narrow set of steps that does the trick. That would be my position. So, anyways, we seem to have a difference of opinion. We don't need a vote on the shed. Everybody seems to like it.
Can I ask just a quick question?
Sure.
Is it the last name, spelling is Mishr?
So my father, when he came from India, he wanted the Shubd pronunciation, so he dropped the A.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Usually there is an A at the end.
That sounds like a cultural question.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think you were just
I
looking
was
to
just
see if
curious.
there was a misspelling, probably, right?
I understand why you'd be interested. Okay.
So initially, he only wanted to change my name and leave his, because he didn't want to depart from his father. But then people raised, well, how can you have your child with a different last name? So he, in my favor, dropped it, even though his last name is different than his father's.
So your dad erred on the side of thinking of you in this
Yeah,
circumstance?
Of the children, that's right.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Now I'm glad we have that cleared up. All right, so I would entertain a motion on whether we're going to approve a plan with steps, small set of steps or no steps. Anybody want to make a motion? Which motion you making? Oh. I appreciate the generic nature of your motion.
Whether there should be steps or not.
Well, we have one way or the other.
You have to state, you have to say, what are you moving? Which way are you going?
Oh, I move that we allow steps to be
A
made.
narrow set of steps?
Narrow set of steps.
Are you gonna define what a narrow set of steps are, if that's your motion? I mean, that's kind of
I would have been
vague.
surprised if you didn't say something. Okay. What would be reasonable, what you would consider a narrow? 2
And what is
feet?
it, and also, are we gonna need, construction, is there gonna be support for it? Are they gonna put, things down to support these steps? I mean, you're going into a wetland now, so you need some information there of
Were you
how
planning
it's
on
gonna be constructed.
cementing or something to flatten?
Or are they just gonna be rocks
What kind
that
of-
just drop
what kind
down?
of stairs?
Well, I don't assume things when we're talking about wetlands.
They did stairs in the front some time ago, and they used these big stone blocks, like, but just shaped so that they were flat. But I can ask.
But do they have to
the best way
dig
to
out
start
to
it.
do that?
Because I agree, you don't want it to fall.
Want to say something? Okay, it's John's motion, he wants to say
So
something.
the proposal is that we suggest that 2-foot steps and the construction details will be submitted to the,
Well,
Commission.
but would there be any excavation to put the steps in? You know what I mean? I think there
That's the
needs some,
construction detail.
That's what, they're gonna submit the construction details of
so
the
you're gonna
staff.
approve something without the construction details in a wetland?
Let the
Well,
staff
you're not
approve
approving
it, is what
anything
he's
tonight.
suggesting.
You're not approving anything tonight. You're not closing this tonight.
Okay, yeah, all
There's
right.
just, there's still the order of conditions.
So
is
can they
next.
have this motion?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But that's
All
just
right,
to give us
so-
guidance for the next meeting when we have a
Okay.
draft decision.
Decision, yeah, right.
Okay, I think I heard John make a motion for a 2 feet wide set of steps with the construction details sent to to our staff for approval. Is there a second to that motion?
Excuse me. So you could get those before the next meeting so that you could approve them as part of the order when you vote next time.
Are you okay with that?
I am.
He's okay, he just modified. Okay. So the motion for a 2-foot set of staff, submit details to the next meeting to discuss our review. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? 1, 2. Okay, 4-2-0. Okay. All right, so where does that leave us? Are there any unresolved issues at this point?
$55.
do you know if you received your check?
Didn't you drop it in person?
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yep,
There we go.
a while ago.
So that means the issue now is $27?
That's what we're down to now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't hear are there any other issues that need to be resolved for the next meeting? So apparently, we will either approve the details that you submit for the construction detail of the steps, or we'll approve it with modification, and then we'll close the hearing and issue at the next meeting. The next meeting would be June
27.
27th. Could I have a motion, continue the hearing until June 27th? Second?
Second.
All in favor? 6-0-0. Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right, thanks a lot.
Next time I won't forget.
Here we go. All right, next on the agenda, planning board comments. To John and Eileen, anything for the planning board? All right, subcommittee and staff reports, anything else going on? Of anyone?
So I just, and I can't remember if I emailed you, so since I did the doodle poll, I potentially might not be able to go to that June 25th thing. But
Okay.
that's,
Is it just you, or is there anybody else?
it's just me. I don't, and I won't
It's the
know until,
stormwater,
I just have somebody coming from overseas that might be, they weren't supposed to come that day, but that's,
You know, the June 25th thing is what?
it's the stormwater thing that Eileen's been.
with Fred Sivian from the DEP.
The
Did
Board
I
of
respond
of
to
Health.
that?
The Board of Health.
Yes. Chose the date where most people appear to be available. and-
Yes,
and
11
Fred's-
a.m., right?
It was
Yeah.
until yesterday.
Okay, I didn't know it was
And you
confirmed.
mightn't be able to make it, but we'll see.
I'll do everything I can.
There were 8 people who said they could make it.
All right,
Was I one of them?
I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I could check.
I have an appointment here, but I can check it. I don't remember the doodle poll. I usually put it on my calendar.
Well, if a lot of people can't, we could probably switch it, but we'd have to do
Yeah.
that
No, no,
fairly
I
soon.
can make it, this is just a chiropractor.
I just didn't remember that you settled on it, but I saw that had the most votes, so I put it in my calendar.
So it's really important, because we're trying to get on the same,
Yeah.
all the
Like to go.
town boards on the same page. We have requirements under the MS4 permit to be doing low-impact development, and we're getting pushback from other boards who don't want to see it. And so this guy from DEP is the, he's the guy, the expert on it, and rather than the Board of Health hearing it from Conservation, they can hear it from somebody who
And so.
is a higher authority.
They don't wanna see it?
Sorry,
Pardon?
They don't wanna see it?
But they don't want it to happen. so-
But I mean, if it's a, requirement,
Right, well,
I have to have it.
Their issue is about,
What difference of opinion
I know
about what
what
it,
the
what it all
okay,
means.
you know what it is.
yeah. There have been some bad examples of so-called LID, which wasn't done
But they weren't
right.
LID really, though,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Retention ponds and stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
And if the concern is standing water, there is the ability to put, to fill some of the void space that would be water with stone, so you don't have standing water. Exactly.
They generally don't hold standing water, I don't think. I mean,
Not,
they just-
not for long,
one
they're,
day.
they're designed to not hold it for long.
Right, but not,
Up to a day, though.
yeah, I know, but I mean, the ones that I've seen, I don't see, rare. I mean, I think, there was one in my backyard that had water once, like 5 years ago. That was
Right.
it.
But there are
And-
precautions you can take so that you have the void
Oh,
space
sure,
accommodating the
yeah,
water.
yeah,
And, we could require that or whatever. Anyways, all right, we have a vote to support the open space and recreation plan.
Right,
What's
so
required?
this is the commission's plan. It's gone to the planning board and been approved. It's going to the Board of Selectmen on the 24th for approval. It's been approved by the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. It has its provisional approval from the State Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So we're getting very close to the end. You don't need a letter from the board because essentially you're the commission that is doing the open space and recreation plan, and some of the commissioners were on the subcommittee, so it's more just that you vote to approve the final
All
version.
right, could I have a motion to show a vote of support to the draft open space and recreation plan that it be approved?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All in favor? 600. Next meeting is June 27th, following meeting July 11th. Anybody out?
Oh, then we can go to the end of the month
Possibly.
for the summer?
No, second Tuesday, second Thursday. No, we skipped the fourth of each month.
In
Are
July
you
and
out of
August.
school yet?
Oh, July and August.
Tomorrow's the last day of.
Oh, I thought we were going the last, second meeting in the
I'm really
month
tired.
for July and August.
No, never do it.
The
We
first
one.
always do
Agenda,
the
I thought
first
I
one,
did.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm happy.
All right, other business?
So, when I was driving home today, where Sawmill goes under Mill, where they had the blowout a while ago, where they've been doing the paving, there looks like there's chunks of pavement that's up on the bank, and there's a lot of dirt that's like where the railing is, on the side where the guy used to have his boat and stuff. I didn't look to the left because the road's uneven. They've already paved the side, my side. So they're supposed to work again today, but it rained, and so they'll probably be starting up tomorrow, but it just looks like, some chunks of asphalt, that maybe, because they, jackhammered, around where the, catch basin is there and
Yeah.
stuff. And it might be debris from that. I'm not sure, I didn't have time to walk down there, but when I drove by, it looked like there was some debris there, and there's definitely a lot of, sediment that's, seems to be stacked up there.
Is it still one way?
It's two-lane traffic, but, it's,
Okay, because we tried going down there yesterday, and
yeah.
it was,
Yeah, I got yelled at.
One way.
When I left my house, there was I went left because I was going out, because I was trying to meet up with you, and I went to go down Wilmington to Birch Street, and I went left, and there was a cop, and he was talking to a woman coming out of the street, and, so I went around, he started yelling at me. I was like, I'm trying to get out of my house, and he's like, oh, okay, but, like,
Okay, so we're
Anyhow,
ignoring the directions of an officer is what I got out of it.
no, it wasn't, he wasn't giving me directions, he had
okay.
his back to me talking to somebody.
All right,
I was not ignoring anybody's
so
directions.
there's no warrant out for you at this point?
There could be, but it'd be pretty old.
Waved us on. We did what we were, we had the same thing yesterday, but the officer waved us on. He probably thought we were DPW.
You can
And then we
also,
went-
like, if you went to, if you came down Spring Valley, you could park and walk over there, because it's right around the corner from Spring Valley.
All right, I think they get the idea. Okay. All right, anything else? Any other business? Motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? Anyone in
Yeah, I
favor?
was right on, I was spot on.
600.
Sorry, who was it? It was Indra and,
Pardon?
who seconded that when I missed it?
I think it was Indra and Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, whoever.
Just in case I end up doing it again.
Did we adjourn?
So have you seen,
Did we adjourn?
Yeah, that was it.
Yes.
That was the motion to adjourn.
have you seen
At
Bill there
8:21.
nesting up at Memorial?